Hey everybody, it's Sean, Bewley the Kid. I just wanted to get us out of the studio, get out of the house for a few minutes. I wanted to bring you guys to a special place that I like going to. When I'm sitting at the computer, programming, writing software, I get kind of tired of sitting there. I'm not built for that. So I often would just walk out of the house, come up to places like this. And in fact, I have hundreds of square miles all around me that I can explore. But I wanted to bring you up here because I wanted to show you something that I thought was really cool, really special, things that I discovered. So what are we waiting for? Let's go. Let's go. And don't fall down on the way. Many of the cliffs in northern Arizona are made of this volcanic rock called basalt. And a lot of this basalt on the south-facing side has been sun varnished. You can see how blackened it is, but this is not the original color of the rock. And the reason we know it's sun varnished is because if you go on the north side of these cliffs, the rock is much lighter color. This is really dark. And thousands of years ago, the ancient people who lived in this area would carve symbols, pictures, and things like that. Now around here we call them petroglyphs. I know some of you guys call them pictographs and things like that, but you're going to confuse everybody in this whole part of the state if you keep saying that. These are petroglyphs to us, and you can see that there's all kinds of different designs. And if I take and show you some more over here, there's like a, looks like a squiggly line right here. You can see. And then over here where this rock broke, now they wouldn't have carved this when the rock was broke. So since they carved it, this has broken, and I don't know what that symbol is. But these things are all over the place. And what's kind of cool, I just live over there. So when I go for a walk, I get to go enjoy things like this. Now this particular place on the rock is pretty cool. I accidentally found this about 17 years ago. I was walking over from my house. I like to go hiking. Don't like to sit at the computer forever. I ended up on the phone with my wife, and she was back at the office, and I was talking with her, and I just happened to notice all these drawings all over the place in the rocks here. Now, I've seen petroglyphs before, but this one was unique because we've got a lot of animals carved in right here, and they look to be something like elk. And the reason I'm guessing elk is because antelope hang out in the prairie out there, and deer hang out in the woods, and elk like to get up on these cliffs and ridges and graze up higher. And I don't know why there's so many of them carved here, but let me count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So there's at least 17 elk carved in on this rock. And then this looks to be like a person. There's the body here, the head, the arms, and the legs. And then down here, it's more like almost like a bow and arrow, but I'm not sure. Now, one can only guess why the ancient people would carve this many elk into one spot. If I were to guess, it would be kind of like notches on a pistol, or football games you won and you stick the sticker on your helmet. If it was me, I would, if I killed an elk in this spot and I was one of them, I'd carve an elk, and I just keep doing it until the whole rock filled up, I guess. I'm not sure, but anyway, or they could have just carved it all at once, or it could have been representative of something completely different. Like I said, we don't know. I wasn't there, you weren't there, but this is pretty cool because these are very, very old. In fact, they're so old that they probably were a lot clearer a long time ago, and then over time they've kind of worn. So this is pretty awesome. Now when I'm hiking around exploring these cliffs, I have to be careful because there are some caves. There are mountain lion here. We catch them on our camera all the time right over there at the house. We've got bobcat and nature's nastiest animal ever, the raccoon. And no, they're not cute, they're nasty. But the biggest danger I run into over here is if you see all these crevices, places hidden up in there, man, we got a lot of rattlesnakes here. And then piles of rocks where the cliffs fall down, and they make these piles, and there's rocks just laying everywhere below the cliff. If you can imagine, I'm walking up these rocks and some of them are unstable, but then others you start hearing a buzzing noise. When I say buzzing, I mean rattlesnakes. And rattlesnakes, they mostly keep them to themselves. They don't want me around. I back off, I go somewhere else. But I've had a few of them, believe it or not. I don't care what some of you guys say. I've had a few of them come after me. They physically come after me. That's nasty. Why don't they go after them nasty raccoons instead? So I just got done climbing a plateau. My house is off in the distance over there. This plateau is surrounded by these big old cliffs. And you got to climb up these kind of unstable rocky cliffs. And once you get up on the plateau, it's pretty flat. Some rocks and some grass. But I've got to show you guys something really strange. I saw this about 20 years ago when I first visited this thing. But you see, we were just at the cliffs, and now I'm coming upon it. And here it is. So I just climbed on a plateau that's not too far from my house. In fact, my house is right over there off in the distance. And I had to climb up some cliffs, and it's all nice and flat up here. But 20 years ago, I met a guy who had lived out in this area since the 1950s. He grew up on the ranch down the road. And he told me that there is a medicine wheel or ceremonial circle from the ancient people that used to live here. And so right away I climbed this plateau and I was walking all around it, and I came across this. This circle is pretty cool. It's very old. The rocks that line it are pretty small, but there's an interesting rock over there on the other side, and I had long suspected that this thing possibly points north. So guys, something weird is happening with my camera. For the very first time, my camera is malfunctioning. It'll be filming me and then it'll just cut out. But this rock right here I thought was of significance because it's larger than every other stone that makes up the circle. And I kind of suspected for years that this points north. I'm going to check it out with a compass. All you old school Army guys, you guys got to remember this. See this case? Look at that. Doesn't that bring back memories? This is the M2 compass. Now I'm going to go look and see if that stone over there is pointing true north or somewhat north. just as I suspected. The ancient ones put this stone here to point north. I'm going to take this tape measure and measure across this thing, see what the diameter is. Try not to walk out in it. All right, this thing is 16 feet this direction, and it is 16 feet this direction. So this circle is 16 feet in diameter. But one of the other interesting things I was going to tell you about was, for the last 20 years, I've been coming up here multiple times a year to go for walks, and I've hardly ever seen vegetation or anything grow in this thing. Grass, weeds, trees, everything grows all around here in every nook and cranny. But why doesn't anything grow in the circle? Did they poison the ground? Or is nothing allowed to grow there? Now, I don't know everything about this circle. I don't know who made it. I know it's very old. And from the neighbor who, he had seen it when he was a little kid in the 1950s, and he said it was very old. You know, it has to have some sort of significance. I'm not sure what it is, but if you guys want to comment on this, put your comments below. And if you're Native American and you understand right away what this is and why this is pointing north and why stuff isn't growing in the middle here, let me know, because I'm going to give you a lot of credibility. You're going to understand this a lot more than the rest of us. And like I said, when I talk about this stuff, I talk about it with humility. I wasn't here when they made this. I didn't observe what they did here. But all we can do is guess. And there are people that pass down stories generation to generation, and they may have more of an answer why we're on a really awesome plateau. I had to climb some cliffs to get up here. Why is this sitting up here? And there's really nothing else around. There's no other artifacts. I mean, there's a little bit of pottery laying over there in places, but not a lot of stuff here. So this had to have some sort of meaning, and we've got a really awesome clear view of the sky. We're very elevated here. But if you guys know anything more about this, I think this is really cool. And I gotta check and see if the camera shut off again, because it's weird. It's reacting weird. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed our little trip outside. It was good for me to get out. I got a few more things I can show you right now. Before I do that, I just wanted to thank you guys for watching my videos. I really appreciate it. I know that I made some mistakes outside, struggling a little bit with the microphone. I kind of had it in the wrong place. It was kind of by my armpit, and then when I closed my arm, it muffled it. So sometimes when I put it up here, it seems a little too loud. So I'll get that figured out. I spotted that problem. And then the other thing, this is just me opening up, but the other thing that really bothers me is ever since my daughter died 11 months ago, I put on a lot of weight, and that needs to change. I need to lose some weight. Don't look so good. I used to be much thinner, more fit. Even when I was on the fire department for a decade, I was a pretty healthy dude. It's kind of sad what loss and tragedy does to a person. I think for a while I just didn't eat, and then ate too much and didn't care. So see if I can get that improved. But anyway, I'll show you a couple other things that are related to what I just showed you. I have How many acres do I have here? 60 some acres in this entire area. And ever since we were here and kids were little and stuff like that, we'd start finding arrowheads, pottery, beads, and things like that. And a lot of you guys might think, well, why would you pick them up? Why would you keep them? Well, they're in my yard. Kids are swinging their swings back and forth, and their feet are kicking up arrowheads. So it's probably better to bring them in the house. And so there's quite a bit of stuff that I found, especially in my yard. My yard and my other property don't really have a huge archaeological significance because this entire area up here was home to a lot of different tribes over the years, and a lot of them were nomadic. A lot of nomadic hunters came through here and were hunting, and they lost their arrowheads everywhere. And every time someone new moves to our area, I show them some of my arrowheads and stuff, and they think, wow, that's really neat. Your yard has arrowheads. And I said, no. I said, your yard has arrowheads. I don't care where your property is out here. Everybody has pottery and arrowheads in their yard. This stuff is everywhere. When I'm walking around and I find these guys right here, kind of grabbed a few white ones, but I'm walking around, I'm going to pick them up before they get broken. Like this one here, very delicate. And, over time, cows and elk and everything step on them. So I think we have over 200 arrowheads. That's over 20 years. The other thing the kids were kicking up when they're swinging back and forth on the swing sets is these beads. Now these beads are interesting because what the ancient people did was they'd find these fossils, which are a crinoid, which was a plant, an ancient sea plant, and then would break up into these little Cheerio-looking things. And they used to take them and string them together and make a necklace. And so in some places you'll find a whole bunch of these, and it's not necessarily where the fossil came from, it's just where their necklace was. And the other day I was on my other property down the road and got this big old, I don't know what this one is. It's kind of broken on this side, but a lot of arrowheads. I see them all over the place, and pottery is laying everywhere, but I was going to show you a couple things. Down in my yard, there was this rock, and it was like this, and pulled it out of the dirt, and I flipped it over, and it's actually a metate. It's what the ancient natives, they ground their corn in. And it's kind of heavy right now, and then I found a few of these monos, and they have a very flat surface on there. And I'll try to show you, but basically they would lay the corn here and just grind it back and forth. Here's another one, got a perfectly flat edge. And another one. So these are examples. I probably have about 8 or 9 monos, but a lot of the other ones I have are broken or in half. But this is a metate, and if you can imagine, it's bowl-shaped, and they ground a lot of corn in there. Now, one of the other cool things that happened was one of my neighbors across the way there, he was getting ready to sell his property, and he's got some cliffs on his property, and he let me go explore, and he was getting rid of the place, and I was over there, and I was crawling around the rocks and the caves, and I looked in this little nook, and there's not any cliff dwellings there. There's nothing there where somebody would have stayed, but in this little nook, I saw some pottery in there. And I'm going to show you what I found. These are the largest pieces of pottery that I've ever found, because everything around here is really broken up. But you can see right here how big that is. And I've got a whole bunch of them. In fact, it's part of the same bowl. And here, this right here is the edge or the lip of the bowl. And if you, you can actually almost put these together. Like there's a place where they all kind of line up. But anyway, I thought that was pretty cool. But the way the cliff is moving in these places, you can actually lift these big rocks up and there's pine cones crushed underneath. And that's because the cliff is coming apart all of the time. And so I pulled these out of there on private property, rescued them. He didn't want anything to do with that. He said, you go ahead and keep them. Do you want to see something really cool? In there with them is this old corn cob. Pretty cool. I think they call it maize. But if you can imagine how old this thing is, I'm pretty careful with it because I don't want, it's kind of delicate. But like I said, it wasn't over there in a cliff dwelling. The way I would describe the yard across the way, the property over there, is that there are all these cliffs on both sides and water runs through there, and there's a big flat area where they could farm. And I do believe they were farming there. And then in the 1800s, after the ranchers started moving in, they set up an old corral over there. There's a corral from the 1800s over there, and they were grazing animals. What I had heard is there was actually sheep over there, so it was a very fertile area at one time. And I have searched the cliffs and canyons all around there and have never found any more than just this. I've looked over and over. Is there any more of these? Where's the rest of the pot? Because this is about a quarter or a third of the pot. I couldn't find the rest of it because all the boulders and stuff had tumbled down and probably destroyed or buried it. So I think that stuff's pretty cool. I'll show you a little bit of that, and that's it for now. So I will catch you later. Like I said, I really appreciate you watching, and this video was kind of low-hanging fruit because I'm working on some other videos that are a little bit more involved, a lot more history to them. Not to say this doesn't have history, but this one was pretty simple for me because all I have to do is walk outside my house up onto the plateau and then show you some of the stuff on my shelf. So anyway, I'll catch you guys later. Bye.
Bewley, the kid.